In at this point. Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us as we talk about how Caesars Entertainment leverages Oracle's applicant tracking system and its candidate relationship management features all in one system. My name is David Mansfield. I'm a principal consultant with ArcLight Consulting. And I work with Rachel, who is from Caesars Entertainment. If you want to introduce yourself real quick, Rachel.
Hey everybody, I am Rachel Takulad from Caesars Entertainment. I'm an Enterprise Talent Acquisition Manager here in Las Vegas.
Thanks a lot. Yep. We got the locals here. Thanks for joining, everybody. So why don't we go ahead and get started? So maybe just to frame up the whole project behind this, right? We started working with Caesars last August, and one of their first initiatives was, they were actually actively shopping for candidate relationship management tools. And they still are, right? If there are tools that they can add to supplement Oracle's features, they are absolutely still in the market for that. However, they were aware that Oracle has some native features already built in that don't require an additional license or any extra cost. It really just takes some minor implementation and a little training know-how on how to actually use them. So we'll just kind of go through the whole process of how they got that live and how it's being used today to get them a lot more passive and active talent in their pipeline. So maybe if we go to the next slide, we can talk about the first thing that a candidate will we'll go through the agenda, right? We're going to cover a few topics here. First thing will be the career website. That's the very first interaction you'll have with your candidates in many cases, right? They'll come to your website organically, and from there they can work their way into various candidate pools. That's what we're going to explain through the configuration we have here. One of the primary ways, and it's the method that Caesars was lacking at the time, and it's the whole point behind this story. Oracle's talent communities is absolutely a feature, not only just to turn on, but to make sure you're leveraging appropriately so that you can really start to mine your talent better, send more targeted communications to different audiences with the built-in recruiting campaigns feature. From there, we'll talk about different best practices with those the campaigns and the emails that you can send out. And then finally, just some real use cases that Caesars has actually used this tool for very large hiring events, especially with their seasonal workforce, which could be thousands of hires in 1 week. That's a lot of resumes to sift through, and you really want to get the word out there to get the best talent, especially with all the competition in the market for some of those same resources. So we have a lot of good stuff to cover. Maybe with that, why don't we take a look at this process flow, just so we can all kind of visualize the candidate life cycle in this situation, right? Let's say it's the most common example. They come to your website by various means. Maybe it's through LinkedIn, a Google search, a referral. And then from there, they have 3 different ways of becoming a member of a candidate pool. Oftentimes, they're just simply applying for a job. That would be the middle example with the standard application or the pipeline application. The standard one is just, the exact job you want to apply for, and you do your best to get that job. The pipeline one is where you're open to maybe various shifts or various roles within the same line of work, but you kind of leave it up to the employer to slot you against the best job opening that makes the most sense, and it improves your flexibility and your chances of being selected. Those are the 2 that Caesars was already using for quite some time, but the top example with the talent community was the brand new option we wanted to introduce. That is nothing more than really just, you can almost think of it as like a resume drop-off, where you also specify the exact type of work you're interested in and even locations that you'd prefer to work in. And then from there, Caesars or any Oracle customer live on Oracle Recruiting can categorize you into a candidate pool. Some of this is done automatically. That's one of the better features we're going to talk about today. And then they basically work themselves into these email drip campaigns, which will just target you based on your preferences. And Caesars really has gotten good results with that. We'll have some metrics to show you in some of the slides. And anything you want to add to that, Rachel? I know this process, you work in this day in, day out.
Yeah, I would just say that The candidate pool functionality allows you to not only send automated emails from the system about job notifications, but it's also sending them things that you want to target to them and designed for them. So it has that dual functionality that drives you into a campaign. And that campaign can then push you back into the website and circle you back into that candidate funnel again from the top down, or it can push you into an applicant status. So it just depends on where you target them.
Absolutely, right? And in many cases, keep in mind, we're talking about one applicant tracking system. Many times, customers will have a bolt-on candidate relationship management system, and you can't easily see their job application history or interactions you had with them during the screening process. You just see their interactions while they were a lead during the candidate relationship side, right? They were just a prospect, not an actual applicant yet. In this case, all of that data is combined in real time. So that's something we'll see as we move along. Why don't we take a look at the career side?
Yeah. So this is the start of that funnel of the candidates and pushing them into your system. The very first thing they're going to come into is your website, regardless of how they got to you. It may have been Google search, it may have been directed there to apply, however they got there, social media, whatnot. And so there's a lot of customizations that we've been able to make happen. And some of these that you're going to see examples of are live right now, and some of them we're in the middle of developing because they came out in 22B.
Mm-hmm. Always want to keep up to date with the latest features, right? So one of the biggest points we're trying to push across here is to really make your career site flashy and engaging and enticing for candidates to want to apply to and explore what you have to offer throughout the site, right? So this is actually a nice picture of just one of many Caesars properties. This is their Harrah's in New Orleans. And this is the current site that everybody passes through, but the long-term vision is actually for each individual property to have their own version of this with different sub-pages all stemming off the main career site so that they can maintain their own personal brand despite all being in one Oracle system, right? We always look for some standardization, of course, as best practices, but sometimes, in the case of a giant holding company like Caesars, you absolutely want some unique branding as well, and that is one thing that is definitely in the works. We have a good example of that actually on the next slide, where you'll see, well, actually, first, the branding capabilities. Something we notice a lot of clients they're actually forgoing, they don't capitalize on the features like the custom CSS, HTML, JavaScript that Oracle has to offer to make the career site really adopt your custom brand and look that much more professional, that much more engaging. A lot of people will just kind of settle for the out-of-the-box features, and sometimes that does come down to the know-how in-house to actually do that sort of coding, right? That's not the kind of skill everybody has. So it does end up sometimes being a blend of a collaboration with marketing and talent acquisition, where oftentimes, marketing will have those skills in-house, right? So it really does involve having multiple stakeholders involved in these. Rachel, on the other hand, is a one-stop shop. She actually has the vision behind this many times and can do the coding to make it look as fancy as she wants. See, that is not the case every day, right? Anything you want to add about She's being
I
honest.
get it close.
Yeah,
I was going to say, actually, I'm going to jump back a second. You can see here that we've used the minimal template, which is the main template that Oracle is pushing for right now on the ORC landing pages. What you'll notice if you use it or know anything about it is that the menu bar at the top, the little hamburger on the right, usually that has a logo in that white section. I've actually minimized that and tied it in with the red band at the top. And that's to tie in with some brand materials that we use. So that is custom at the top. It would look a little bit different unless you went in and edited that code. Mm-hmm. So, and that's what we've done on this page is use those sections on the left to really dig in and edit those a little bit. And you'll also see that we've used off-site hosting of the images, so they can't be hosted inside your Oracle tool. They do need to be hosted off-site. I've used a couple different combinations of things. When we do email campaigns, I'm using Google Photos because they're not, it's just a Dropbox on Google Drive. Other times when it's more permanent like this, I do use our standard web development tool and host it on our main website and then link over to it. So you do have to kind of host it separately and link over to the images. And then we also have the ability to have a custom header, custom footer, your CSS, customization, and then a little bit of JavaScript you can add in there, which comes in handy when you do things like Google Analytics, which we'll talk about in a few minutes, but here's those pages you were digging into a little bit.
Yes, if you notice that, right, each one of those rows is eventually going to be a Caesars property-specific subpage within the main domain. They each have their own URL, and then from there you can build out a specific site with its own branding and really personalize it for that specific property, but still keep it all under the Caesars umbrella. And it'll make navigation easy. If somebody's flexible, maybe they're willing to move and explore everything that Caesars has to offer, they'll be able to just do that kind of throughout all the different pages, all on the same site. The nice thing is, despite that being, potentially 10 or 20 different websites, it's all feeding the same applicant tracking system.
And you can duplicate your pages and then just tweak the look of them. So you've duplicated and then just refilter. So you're not recreating it every single time.
Right, yeah, you may have a layout with specific columns and everything, and all you want to do is just put different images and not have to start from scratch every time. That's a huge time saver. It's a great call out.
And then you'll also notice here that they now have the ability to customize the search results page, which is a big improvement over the standard just list of job requisitions that was coming up. You can change the filtering, you can change the layout of it, you can add the block layout that was on the old version of the websites here now into the minimal theme. So there are ways to kind of customize that for what your brand is, and it's a great opportunity to work with brand on it.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'll jump over to Google Analytics. So this is what we've implemented with JavaScript.
Yes.
And you can talk about that process because I'm not exactly sure what you did there.
Yeah. It's a very new feature, but I think it's something that everybody needs because there are often questions about, hey, how much traffic is our site actually getting? How much drop-off is there? How much actual time are people spending on our site? Are they actually clicking anything? Are they, look at what are the different sources they're coming through, especially, this is tracking all different things. It's showing you if they came through LinkedIn, if they came through Google. It was showing us good metrics like every 30 minutes on average, they were getting about 143 to 150 site visits from different countries even, despite the fact that Caesars operates only in the US. It was really impressive data that the moment you just get this code from a Google developer account, you do need a Google developer account. But then once you have this bit of code that they give you, you can go back to where we were a moment ago, that setup page Rachel was showing. There's a place to just plug that in, and then within 24 hours, this just instantly starts giving you these metrics. So there really wasn't that much to do. It's rather easy to actually set this up. The biggest thing is just getting the Google account, I would say.
Yes,
Yeah,
that is the most complicated part.
Yeah, because,
It's a copy-paste otherwise.
we consider ourselves Oracle people. Next thing you know, we need to be Google people. It takes multiple systems.
You'll want your web development team for that one, just a heads up.
Definitely.
So kind of circling back to where we started, the whole point of this website is to drive people into your application flow. And so by adding this tab on your website, you're able to drive people into that application flow without requiring them to fully apply to a job. And that's where the talent communities come in. If you enable this on the website, you add this box, they can just click, upload their resume, subscribe to the type of roles they want to see, and they're automatically going to start seeing them. And then they're also automatically going to show up in your candidate database for someone who goes in and sources and searches in there for specific skill sets or whatever, however they're using your ATS.
Absolutely. And this button that wasn't there through 2020 and 2021.
It's brand new.
Right?
2022, yeah.
And it has we'll see in a moment, it's resulted in a huge source of candidates over many others. So it was definitely a good add-on. And we'll speak to the configuration behind this. There's really not too much. Really all you need to do is enable one setting so that you can actually integrate that with your career sites. And then from there, you just need to build what they call a talent community application flow. Those are always going to be shorter than standard job applications because you're not doing things like pre-screening questions. You're probably not collecting EEO information. Caesars actually kept it very minimal. It was just, name, contact information, and a resume was pretty much where we cut it off, I think.
Yeah, and they, selecting the categories, the job categories.
Oh, and that's the biggest part.
Because that puts them in the right filter that you need.
Mm-hmm. Because one of the biggest goals with this is to automate your marketing. You don't want to have to manually select every single person and try to guess who might be a good fit for, you know, housekeeping and laundry or HR or IT or table games. You kind of want them telling you that, and then you can kind of set the system to just run processes to send emails to the right people accordingly is really the goal to march towards here.
This is what it looks like.
So this is the back-end setup of what Oracle calls a talent community pool. So imagine people are working their way into there organically through that button we just showed a moment ago that's right out on the front page of the career site. Many of them, though, are working their way in there through just job applications. One of the nicest things that you know, Caesars was happy to discover was that the moment they turned on these talent communities, they actually already had thousands of people who could become subject to any of those categories or preferred locations that they might want to work in, because they had signed up for marketing
They
communications.
do have to check that box for marketing communications and opt in through the email opt-in notification.
Right.
But then they start showing up automatically when you set them up.
Absolutely. You don't need to work backwards and find all those people who have applied over the years and try to retroactively map them to the appropriate communities. The system has been tracking that since day one, whether you use talent communities or not. So rest assured, that large work effort is already taken care of automatically for you. Maybe just to talk to some of the features with this.
You want me to jump forward?
The two main ways that you're able to really slice and dice the population are categories, which is actually your job families from core HR. You may recognize that on the career site. Candidates are able to search by those. It's actually a search filter for the line of work they're interested in. And they can select multiple. Maybe they're open to working in finance or IT or HR, a wide variety, right? And the same goes for locations. And that just maps to any of the locations that you're posting jobs to today. They might specifically want to work in Las Vegas. I'm sure that's a very common one. So then somebody will work their way into a Las Vegas talent community pool, whether you already had that standing up or not. You might make that a month after you've had tons of candidates rolling into that pool behind the scenes. The moment you make one with that matching criteria, you're actually going to see them all pop up on their own. That's something to keep in mind. You don't need to add them manually. Anything else you want to add on that?
No. There's,
Take a look at the next slide.
yeah. And do you want to pause, see if anybody has any questions so far? We've gone through a ton.
Yeah, we've already covered a good amount of ground here.
We're throwing information at them.
Right, and I've seen some heads nodding. It seems like some of this is familiar to some folks. Are a good amount of people using the talent communities today? Anybody? There's one.
All right.
Not with ORC? Okay.
All right.
Got it. Okay. And any questions so far on how to set them up? Oh, yes.
Well, my question is really, I'm curious what platform you had before you.
That was before Rachel's time. but
Sharice? She can answer you.
Yeah.
She was asking what platform we were using before Oracle
Yes.
or ORC.
Yep, so that was Taleo, right? And that is the case for many folks in this room as longtime Oracle customers. I'm sure the big push is for everybody to migrate from Taleo to Recruiting Cloud at this point, right? So, you know, if we want to get into the specifics of what it's like to move any of your passive talent data, because the concept of talent communities, that didn't exist as much, but candidate pools did, and that is the kind of data you could move over to Oracle Recruiting, potentially through conversion efforts. Oh, yes? That's a good question.
Did we have a
you do that
CRM
back
when we
then?
integrated from? No, there was no CRM. Correct, yes. Yeah, pretty much everything you're seeing today is stuff that we've implemented in the last 12 months. There was not much for this previous to that, is my understanding, unless there was something prior.
No, this is very recent.
Okay.
Yeah, so then maybe just to get a look at what it looks like, whether these are ones that you built manually or the ones that have just been composing themselves automatically over time. This is what it looks like in the recruiting module, just to get the lay of the land of your different candidate pools. I actually know some clients who have hidden that tab and turned that off, so I actually really wanted to include this screenshot in case that was the case for anyone and they forgot that this exists. That is where it is. It might even just be sitting there kind of collecting dust today, right? Again, I noticed that this is a very overlooked feature, and that was why we wanted to put this presentation together, right? So that is the tab where you manage your candidate pools.
And we were guilty of that. It was hidden.
Oh, sorry, say again?
It was hidden.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for Caesars, it wasn't even available, right? It was suppressed, because why would you have a page with no data on it, right? So once you start setting those up, there are 3 different types of pools. There's a global one, which we're really getting into recruiter security and visibility into these pools. You don't necessarily always want everybody being able to use the same pools, especially if they shouldn't be sending marketing communications out for one property versus another in the Caesars case, right? Like maybe Harrah's recruiters shouldn't be doing that for Caesars Palace, just as a basic example. The global ones, everybody sees and has full access to. So that should be the most generic one where everybody's just dropping off a resume, and you kind of would have an aggregate of all the pools working their way into there so that everybody can at least look at the candidates, right? But then when you get into the shared and private ones, those are the ones where you do specifically need to add recruiters so that they can see any of that data and potentially make a marketing campaign based off of that. It's good to note that the global ones, you can't create a campaign directly off that, and I think that is so that people don't accidentally send out hundreds of thousands of emails to the wrong population, right? Whereas with the shared and the private ones, those can be subject to the marketing campaigns we're going to look at in a moment. Anything else you want to add there, Rachel? Or
No.
Rachel
know.
you manage the bulk of those, right?
Yeah, they're all managed out of our talent acquisition team on the enterprise level, so we don't have our recruiters currently using these modules. The reason for that, just because there is a bit of a learning curve on doing that, and so we're starting with sourcing and rolling things out slowly to them. But yeah, there will be the ability, or there is the innate ability for them to do that, and eventually that's the goal, is for them to be able to send emails to the people in their region, or have one person in their region be able to run this for their regions.
Mm-hmm.
And this kind of talks a little bit more about like how you can interact with those candidates, how you can manually add them, automatically add them based on parameters.
Yes, this was actually a really good technique that Rachel used that I think everybody could adopt very easily, right? Let's say, a large percentage of your candidates maybe didn't check that box at the bottom of a job application where they would sign up to work their way into a candidate pool or be subject to marketing communications. This was Rachel's nifty way of finding out people's interests and adding them to pools on their behalf. She basically looked through filled requisitions and found anybody who, these are folks who signed job applications and specifically were interested in that line of work in these specific locations. She used that feature to bulk select everybody and then use that button to add everybody to the pools that she wanted to. And it was a great way to start building her audience in record time for these marketing campaigns and collections of similar experience and similar interests that she knew would have a better response to different communications that she wanted to send out. Trying to think if there's anything else you want to add there. I think maybe the point at the bottom can never be overlooked, the fact that you have their applicant history and what will be their candidate, the CRM kind of data all in one, as we mentioned before. This is the part you wouldn't be able to do that, or not very easily in a CRM. You probably wouldn't have the ability to see the requisitions they applied to and automatically add them over to another section of the same application, right? Anything else we want to add there?
Yeah, I mean, you can add them to the pool, but if they haven't double opted in, it's not necessarily going to send the email to them. So, but then you're in a pool and you have them all gathered together and you can have different engagement with them. We sent a list to a property and had them reach out to different ones that had applied in the past when we had a rec that was hard to fill, different things like that. So they have a full pool of all the applicants for a specific job type. So that was one way that this was used, and one way you can use it. Whereas it's not always going to send that email. You can click a button and say send it to the people who haven't double opted in, but you can't say send it to people who absolutely didn't check the marketing button. So there's a two-step check-in that they have to do there before it'll actually go to them. But there's also this tool, phases and states, which you can see on this page. You know, see a lot of them, they said new to be reviewed. And then when you're looking at the new to be reviewed, that can change, and those are the phases and states.
And this is something a lot of us might be familiar, right? It looks a lot like the candidate selection process that you would use in a requisition to screen candidates and ultimately get them to an offer, interviews, disposition them, right? The same concept exists within the candidate pools as well, so that you can track interactions. It's just a little different though, right? It's things like, is this somebody that we'd like to add to a requisition? Is this somebody we should definitely nurture and contact and place on a job within the next 6 months? It's all the things that happen before we try to bring them onto our payroll and get an offer for a specific job, right? So it's really kind of going more in terms of our last interaction with them from a candidate relationship perspective.
I do use this to monitor like who I've invited to an event already, so I'll change their status to invited to hiring event or invite to hiring event when we have these big events. So that is one way that we use this to track who it's already gone to. What groups.
And this is all reportable too, right? So if you have 100 candidate pools and you wanted to know, hey, who are all the people that made it to the nurture step and that we want to place within the next year, you now have that metric by using the phases and states in a candidate pool. So definitely a useful feature. But this is the big part. This is the real return on your investment for making these candidate pools and building the talent community up. It's being able to use this campaign feature to actually get RSVPs for big hiring events, get more job applications for critical roles that you need filled. Great way to also do internal referral for jobs. Those are the three main methods of using the campaigns. I think the one you use the most is the RSVP one, right? The responder request.
Yeah, the responder request, apply to a job, some of those automatically go out, so that's nice. So that, I would say the two on either side are the most common. The refer a job is great if you're working on internal referral campaigns, and that's something that we're gonna explore once we roll that program out.
Absolutely, because with internal referrals, right, you already know and trust your people so much better than folks that aren't on your payroll, right? If they are getting automatic emails saying, hey, these are the big jobs we want to fill. Do you know any friends? Please use this link and you will get the referral bonus, for example. This will automate sending out those emails to people with the links in ways that you can kind of slice and dice your population a little easier than you might have been able to do through Microsoft Outlook, doing it offline, right? And you'd have to copy and paste the job openings into there, right? This just streamlines that process so much more, even for the internal experience. And then in terms of campaign best practices, maybe just, we have some visuals of this in a moment, but the way Caesars is doing it, they're doing it really categorized by the line of work, the different property, so that for these email communications, they have a consistent and nice looking brand. Eventually the long-term goal is to make it so every property kind of has their own template, right?
Yeah, I provide templates for the recruiters to use to target for events and things like that. Yeah.
So then it's really just a matter of swapping in different photos and different links or text rather than starting
Switching
from
out words.
scratch.
Yep. Yeah, and that allows us to focus on the brand of each property. Each property has its own brand, its own voice that they use, and so being able to have them have that customizable to a level while still looking like it's uniform with the rest of us, we're able to build those templates and roll those out. And I use past ones as templates right now and repeat them with alterations, but in the future, I would like to set up a full database of templates for everybody.
Right, and then at that point, maybe the recruiters can get their feet wet with this a little more. Oh, yes, there's a question. Oh, yeah.
When you use, like you said, you reuse your templates, your marketing team, have they given you set, like you've got these 4 images that you use?
So the question was whether I have a set number of graphics from the marketing team. In technicality, yes, but I have access to all of that because I also do employer branding and recruitment marketing. So
do your recruiters have those as well?
they'll have links. They'll have to have the links to the live images that they can use because they do have to be hosted publicly on the website.
Okay.
So those images will not be just available for a recruiter to go and pick whatever one they want and upload it. I will have to have like a preset number that they can grab from.
Okay, and you said you don't have fixed templates, but locked templates yet?
And we haven't
Built.
instituted those. I have some very vague ones. I had structure, but nothing like set into them.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, the branding is kind of locked down at this point. You're one of the few folks that has access to that behind the scenes, for the setup at least.
Yeah, on this side, yes, it's pretty locked down right now. We need to come out with that specific list and whatnot and provide those tools. One thing I was going to talk about here is that you can actually take these emails that go out, and based on the behavior of the candidate, send out a second email. You can do a full drip campaign. You can only do it to a certain level. It does have some limitations on the depth of those drip campaigns, but you can say, did they take the action that I specifically wanted them to? If they didn't, let's go nudge them another time. And if they did it, but they didn't complete it, let's nudge them another time. So there are some limitations on that, but it is helpful to like redirect them or try an A/B testing of an email template or an A/B testing of a subject line, test those different options and see what gets through to them and where they're diving in and where they're accepting the message or not.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And some of the metrics will tell us that kind of thing too. I think that's one of the biggest things that Caesars has to show after implementing this. So I think we launched that in late 2021. This is a screenshot taken in the winter time. So I think it was live for only about 3 months or so.
2 or 3 months, yeah.
It was, and we were actually kind of prepping for this presentation, wanted to get these screenshots together, and happened to notice that the biggest source that Caesars had of candidates at that time, I'm sure this number is significantly larger by now, but in 3 months, that bar all the way to the left, on the right here, it might be kind of hard to see for everybody, but that is a source where talent communities hits over 60,000 new candidates who came through the system, and it's beating other sources like Indeed, LinkedIn, direct apply through the site, links that are sent individually. So it really goes to show that turning this on made a difference in record time. It was absolutely worth pursuing for that reason.
Yeah, I mean, with that number, you'll also notice like it is a very high number in comparison to the others because you can come from those other sources and land in a candidate pool. So it's kind of skews it a little bit, but it shows you that you have that ability in there and that it does make an impact.
And it's tracking other nice things, right? Like, again, it's hard to see from there, apologies, but those blocks at the top, they're showing things like conversion rate. It's showing how many people who actually went through, say, the talent communities or the campaigns actually turned into job applications, right? It's one thing to drop off a resume, but it's so much better if they go through all the other steps to become an actual applicant, right? That is also being tracked here as well. And that is a delivered dashboard, we should mention. Everybody has that specific one in your Oracle environment today. It'll just instantly start picking up data as soon as you start using the CRM features. So that's something to note. Caesars has embedded that in the hiring module, as many people do, right? You just add that tab to the side, and then you have those metrics available right within the UI. That's all it took to get that going. That wasn't a custom dashboard by any means. And anything we want to mention about the metrics there? And
Yeah, the metrics on the left are nice because they're directly in the campaign. You don't have to go to the data and metrics page. You actually stay right in the campaign slide or section. And it tells you, if people are getting delivered your email, how many people are getting delivered, how many people are opening it versus how many are unsubscribing, maybe how many bounced, maybe their email addresses don't exist anymore. It gives you that high level information. You can drill down in the data and metrics, of course, but it gives you a high level so you understand what exactly is trending as soon as it sends. And it does send on a scheduled process, so it's not an instant. It does take, 15, 20 minutes for it to go out depending on your algorithm. But it does show all that, so it's kind of cool to see it in real time.
Yeah.
And then we'll talk a little bit about how this kind of rolled out and how it's actually worked for us. So I'm going to walk through. This was our seasonal hiring here last year, or this past spring. So this past spring, we had seasonal pool hiring for Las Vegas, and we put together kind of this campaign for the Las Vegas region doing pool hiring. They had some hiring events. We put together some flyers, and then with those flyers, actually went in and built custom landing pages in the campaigns. We didn't mention that earlier. You can actually create custom templated landing pages to go along with your emails if you want to drive them to a landing page that has details about something specific. But you also get to send them multiple emails, and you can brand them all the same. So we've got a lot of traction in this, directing them over to an Eventbrite to register. So basically we took them from the flyer to the landing page to register, and then they were in our talent pool from there, and they ended up in an application or at a hiring event. So there was kind of a back and forth flow there between the application and the website, depending on how they landed, but we did get them registered through Eventbrite for the events using these tools. So for this particular pool hiring campaign, we targeted within 100 miles of Las Vegas. We were only looking at external candidates, although I did do an internal campaign as well for this on the backside to have people bring their kids in, their teenagers, to come work for us for the summer.
Nice.
So we have some pretty good clicks on our landing page here, like over 1,500 people actually got to our landing page, which is great because that was mostly social media and sent out to like our community partners like the unemployment department and whatnot.
That's a great point to bring up too, because I'm sure a lot of people are wondering, hey, how do we get the talent that isn't necessarily in Oracle?
Yeah.
Rachel's solution for that, as you might have noticed,
QR
there's a
code.
QR code embedded into that, and in some cases that became physical flyers that you printed out around the strip, right?
A lot of times, yeah.
Or it's posted out on the company Facebook or LinkedIn, Twitter. Really makes it so you can expand your horizon well beyond Oracle, but nonetheless, that's going to lead them into the community pools, or it's going to lead them into specific job applications, or to Eventbrite in some cases, right?
Yeah, so that QR code actually took them to the page on the left here, the landing page. But also these two emails on the right took them to the landing page. So if they got a physical flyer or saw us online, they landed on the landing page first. If they were already in our system, they landed on these emails, which actually drove them to that landing page. And then the landing page had a link on it for them to register for the hiring event on Eventbrite and also to complete their formal application on our website, because they do still have to do the formal application. Yeah, Martin. If we had physical flyers, how did we distribute them? Yeah, so we have community partners in the region, so that's schools and nonprofits, unemployment departments, things like that, sending those out as PDFs, and a lot of times they printed them and gave them to their clients. So we did a lot of that, and then the Las Vegas region has a lot of places they post things in the community because of the size of the properties.
So then I think,
That
you know,
was the
this is
result.
another good thing you can see. Let's say you are going the standard email route, right? The offline version with the flyers or the social media, that's one thing. But as you might have noticed, Caesars already had over 16,000 people who were subject to receive the emails. So that's already a huge population. And as they start to break that down, just with this native dashboard feature within each campaign, it will start to give you kind of a breakdown of, you know, here are the top locations that will start to receive this communication. If you toggle through that little drop down there above the circles, you have different options like, you know, top 5 previous employers who will be subject to this, or top 5 levels of education, so that you'll know if, okay, this is going to hit mostly people who have bachelor's degrees, or this is going to hit mostly people who actually previously worked at Caesars or who are in Las Vegas. Ways to kind of know that you're hitting the mark in terms of the folks you want to reach before you actually click the button to send these emails out, because you might need to fine-tune your audience before is kind of the point with that. Anything else you want to add there with that piece, sir?
No, the audience breakdown you can see before the email sends, so it'll give you an idea if you've got the right audience, if you've really got your targeting down, if it even makes sense to send, if it's a tiny little audience, is it worth it?
Right. You could do a direct invite to apply at
Yeah,
that point.
if there's a smaller audience, it may not be worth all the work to make it happen. You kind of just judge based on that. Or if it's too broad of an audience, how do you narrow in? Because a lot of times you want to like take people out of the process more than you want to put people in when you're looking at marketing. But yeah, the different tools in there to see who you're sending to, who you're talking to, are helpful when you're designing these tools. And there are limitations, like we talked about before, where you're going to run into things where they're not quite fully built out, but there are other places to see them. Mm-hmm. So you'll see this data on one screen while the other page is going to show the actual send metrics. They're just kind of like spread out a little bit.
Right, absolutely.
And then another example that we used was the National Day of Hiring. This was very similar. So there's some high-level stats about that. We drove people in through the global talent community, which was the whole nation. And every property had its own hiring event, or most of the properties had their own hiring event within their region. Las Vegas had one that was for all 9 properties, and Atlantic City had all 3, so there's a few different ones, but we did get all the properties involved in this, and we had online ad campaigns, so paid media with Google Ads, social media, paid sponsored ads, things like that, drove people to this landing page, and we're able to get them into an Eventbrite, registered, and then physically to the event. And so that's just another example of how we took the same thing and we made it global, and we used those additional tools to also drive into that landing page.
Right, so not all of it was straight out of Oracle, right? There are some tools you
There's
supplemented.
auxiliary tools that you can use, yeah, and your advertising team was amazing in helping with all that.
Of course, yeah, all of the images that I've seen them produce is really professional, really flashy, right? And that's the thing with these are not your typical Recruiting Cloud or really Oracle in general notifications. For this particular case, Oracle has opened up almost the same tool that you use to build the career sites, where you could have CSS or HTML, really high definition images, and that's just the kind of thing you typically can't do with notifications in the system, right? For this, they really know that we need to attract talent with this, so they've given us all those kind of branding capabilities you'd need. It does take a little training to get it to look like that, though, right? I will admit it's not the easiest thing at first, but you really got the hang of it pretty quickly.
Yeah, it's mostly drag and drop blocks. So you're confined to a block, but you can do things within that block. You can add an image. So most of that top half with the gray is an image. It's not, the text is not on its own. It's not separate. It's part of the image. So you can inlay images with things on them. You can add links and buttons, but your functionality is limited to blocks and rows. So it's basically a grid.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that was the end of what I have.
Yep. So that was the whole presentation. Any immediate questions? I know we had a few while we were going through it. Has anybody here sent a campaign through Oracle yet? One, yes.
You don't count.
Yes. Titleist, yep. Yeah. But,
Is anybody here going to go home and send a campaign?
right, if there are questions later on how to do this or what it took to set this up, we have our contact info here, and I'd be happy to talk through this with anybody. Just, again, it really didn't take that long for Caesars. I think maybe it was 3 or 4 weeks for us to turn it on, do a little testing in the test environment, move it to production, and then you started working on your first campaigns and candidate pools within a month, I feel like,
It was
right?
pretty quick. I don't remember exactly how long, but yeah, it was pretty quick. Did you have a question?
Okay,
All right.
for sure, yeah.
We'll chat.
Sounds
You
like a
have a
plan.
question?
On the bounced emails,
Yeah.
can you tell me 2 things? Does the system flag them so that those people aren't they're not even people, right? It's just a dead end. And second, do you do anything to clean them up?
That's a good question. Have you ever pursued the bounced emails?
No.
Yes.
So I believe it takes them out because the next one you send from the same campaign, it doesn't have the same number, like it's removed that number. As far as cleanup, I haven't done anything with that, so I think the answer is no on that part, unless it's automated.
That is what the do not send rule is for. There's a feature that's actually, to your point, Todd, it's meant to know when those get bounced. Another thing is, though, they have the option to unsubscribe. That was another metric that's being tracked there. If people feel like you're spamming them, they always have the option to opt out of these communications, of course, or opt out of the talent community and kind of dispose of their data there. Mm-hmm.
I presume with that question, you're looking to get that information from them?
Yeah, I was looking for ideas on how that may.
Well, that's not what you figured out.
Yeah,
Yeah, we'll take all the suggestions we can get there.
probably top of mind for a lot of customers. Yeah.
Anybody else?
All right.
All right, well, thank you.
Yeah, thanks a lot, everybody.
Wonderful.
Appreciate the attention
Before
here.
it's over, I have the CPE credit sign-up sheet here.
Okay.
We
Oh,
should be
yeah.
going another 4 minutes to make the 50 minutes go, so somebody can ask another question.
Yeah.
You want to ask your very specific questions over here?
Yeah. No question is off limits.
Yeah, so just real quick,
Yeah.
I went to your website while you were talking.
Oh,
Oh, cool.
And I'm just really curious if you have explored vanity URLs at all? And
yes.
if-
That's in the works right now?
Yes, it's in testing right now. It does affect the metadata that is assigned to your page, so you have to hard code the metadata, and so we have not moved forward with that, trying to determine what effect that will have. So that's in testing right now.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, there are a couple features you need to forego when you switch to the vanity URL. You might have noticed, they warn you, right? Not sure when on the roadmap it's anticipated that you get all the features you had before turning that on. I think the biggest one is when you share the website.
Yeah, the metadata.
That's the
Yeah.
biggest drawback. But you know, having your own URL instead of the 4-letter Oracle code one, it definitely is a little more appealing.
It's very important to us.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
understand.
For those who don't know, that's when you share to Facebook or LinkedIn or wherever you share, and it's got the image and the square box around it has a preview of what the website is. That disappears and it just simply says your website address when it's not, or when it is a custom URL. And then to add that back in, you have to custom add that to the header via code. So we have not moved forward with that until we figure out like what that gap is and how that's truly gonna affect it.
It's going to involve a lot of teams too,
Yeah, maybe.
right? Maybe IT.
Yeah, one more?
Yeah, I have the same question related to vanity URLs.
Oh, yeah.
So whenever we are starting a campaigns, we do have a vanity URL currently in place.
Oh, great.
But what we have observed is whenever we are trying to send a campaign information, the message templates will be in the candidates will be sent from the Oracle URL, not the
Oh, that's the
URL.
vanity email address.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That's the custom email address.
Have you turned that one on yet, the vanity email?
We have the vanity URL in
It
place.
is.
It is.
So it's kind of creating a security concern for us because
Got it.
we say that this is our official web address, but we send out emails, campaign emails.
So there's a second setting there that you probably don't have turned on for the email address. It's
Yes,
separate than the
but-
Vanity website.
But Oracle says that cannot be changed.
It can. We've done it.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we're sending from
maybe we
careers
need
at
to
Caesars
have
Entertainment
a
right now.
chat.
Yeah. It's available. I'm pretty sure he set it up, so I'll
Okay.
let you ask him.
Guilty.
That's a great information. Thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Caesar's actually made sure it was an email address where you wanted people to be able to reply. It wasn't a do not reply,
Yeah,
right?
we have an inbox that it goes to.
Which is really interesting because a lot of clients, they'll say, oh, no, we don't want, 16,000 people that we just messaged replying to us, but
But if they want a job, we want to hire them.
Right.
So
touche.
to be fair, we want them to contact us. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, so it's something to think about.
Maybe
And-
as the market changes, I don't know.
Right, and then that's, vanity email and vanity URL, starting to more and more personalize your brand.
Yeah.
And also the links, the job links that you will be sending out within the job campaigns. So are you able to change that to vanity URL also?
I think the job links stay the same from my
yeah, they
understanding.
are
I haven't
staying
tested
the
it, but I
same.
do believe
Yeah.
the job links themselves stay the same.
Redirect to the Oracle
Yeah.
links.
They'll still have that long, yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure there's much you can do about that.
right.
You can run them through a bit.ly shortener. That's what I would do.
That's a good
You
workaround.
can get rid of it.
Yeah.
And one more question regarding the branding. So I have seen your branding, and did you use JavaScript within the custom branding pages or just for the Google Analytics?
Only for Google now.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
In this
Yeah.
case, we've only used it for the Google. I did use quite a bit of custom CSS
Uh-huh.
to minimize images and change colors and fonts and things, but in this case, not a ton of JavaScript. The JavaScript does tend to kind of mess with the website functionality, and so you have to be really careful in testing that, and so the testing amount that was gonna need to be done and the teams that I would have to pull in because my experience with JavaScript is limited, we didn't go that route.
Okay, but does ORC allow JavaScript to be used? Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Definitely.
Okay.
Yeah, you used to have a ton. right?
We did, and it was breaking things, so I took it out.
You have to really give it a lot of TLC.
Yeah, it needs a little bit of coaxing.
Right.
Because they already have JavaScript inlaid, so it conflicts with each other, right? You have to really like understand it, and I'm not quite that advanced in my coding.
Right. It's not for everybody. Yeah,
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
absolutely.
Anybody else before we wrap up? Oh, yeah.
One more?
I'm just really curious about this campaign thing. Are you specifically the person running all these campaigns?
Yes, ma'am.
I commend you for that. But I was just,
To be fair, they're pretty limited, but.
right, well, no, I was trying to just figure
It's like
out
once a month.
because we're taking steps towards it. And I think my fear being, I own the recruiting module. And my fear is, I don't think I trust my recruiters with the URLs and the links and the things, and to build these things, I think they would become more stressed out. So that's why I was wondering specifically if you did it or if you had a process.
Well, now we have a talent
them.
specialist on our team who's taking on a lot of that, so it's not ultimately going to be me, but
Right.
everything you've looked at here has been me.
Yeah.
In that case, you can, set them up so the templates are super locked. They can literally just send to the specific audience and change a link. You can have the images embedded in it, all the layout done. They can go in and change, you have to tell them they can't change things because they will have access to change, but you can say like, these are your parameters. You also get the ability to send out automatic emails for the jobs list, so enabling those talent communities and those campaigns is gonna add those auto emails that are gonna go out. You're gonna wanna go into your recruiting library and make sure that the language in those makes sense, because it's very like robotic.
It is.
So we've been looking at that, but getting in there and altering that and at least turning that on gets some starting to drip out to them and something going, and that gives them once a week. And then, I do special events when we have a national campaign, as you just saw. This was a special event that I did nationwide. I'm not sending out an email every couple weeks. I know a lot of companies, they do a newsletter or a monthly email. We're not at that point at this point, so it's what you're available to do and what you have the bandwidth to do. You can really tailor it.
Right, I'm sure there's a concern that's going to add to your day job,
Yeah.
understandably. Someone's got to do it.
All right.
Any questions?
Well,
Okay,
it's
I think
been
we did our
wonderful.
50 minutes. We're
All
good.
right. Well, it's been
We did
wonderful.
something right.
Yeah. Make sure you sign over
Thank you.
here too.
Appreciate it, everybody.
Thank you, everyone. Appreciate it.